Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simple Low Carb Lifestyle podcast. Today, I have one of my favorite former podcastees, Mandy Pagano. I had to have her on. Well, other than she's an amazing ketogenic cook, I missed listening to her on my headphones or in my car driving around because she's not on podcasts anymore. So I thought, I need to share you with everybody. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Thanks. Let's just start with your story. How did you get into low carb and keto for yourself? And of course, we'll transition into family and stuff from there.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So for me, getting into low carb and keto it felt at the time like it was kind of a matter of life and death. I was 35 and had two kids and a husband that I just love like above everything, and was really overweight and couldn't figure out how to lose weight and was starting to have some health problems. And I was kind of terrified that I was going to drop dead and leave everybody. I really distinctly remember one of the turning points for me was going to Disney with my children and us having a fast pass. Like we were on the side of the park with like Thunder Mountain and had to be over by Space Mountain in 10 minutes. And there's a crowd and they're trying to run. And I don't think I could run for more than like 5 feet. My heart was just pounding and I couldn't breathe. I had asthma really bad and really bad hereditary allergies that just flared up like crazy. I want to say I was sick like 3 or 4 times a year with major sinus infections, bronchitis, pneumonia, that kind of thing. And I went running with them and had to stop immediately. And like we missed our fast pass because I thought I was going to drop dead in the middle of Disney. And I just woke up one day and realized that I didn't want to leave my family and I had to do something. And I know you're familiar with Mary Roberts. A lot of your listeners might be Keto Mary on Instagram and all over the internet. And she's a really good friend of mine. I actually have known her for as long as my son has been alive. So about 13, 14 years, mostly online. We met on Cafe Mom.
Okay.
So like a mom. Yes, it was, those old message boards that nobody uses anymore. Yeah. So we met on there and we got to be really good friends and we were diet buddies on and off for a really long time. Cause she was overweight as well. And she had diabetes and some other problems. And I pulled up Facebook one day and Mary didn't look like Mary. Mary went from, taking up 2 to 3 seats, in a theater to holy cow, she's thin and she looks wonderful and is in skin tight spandex in the gym and taking a picture. And I was like, how did you do that? So we'd both sort of dabbled in Atkins, a little while before that. And she told me that she found Atkins and through Atkins, she found keto. And so I pretty much decided immediately that I needed to start whatever it was that she was doing. Yeah. And within about 3 months, I had stopped being really sick with all the allergy issues. Since I started keto, I pretty much control all of that with the daily Claritin or a Zyrtec or something, just an over-the-counter med. I haven't had to use my rescue inhaler in 5 years now. And within about 9 months to a year, I dropped about 80 pounds. I went from a women's size 20 to I fluctuate right now depending on how it's cut, but I'm comfortably between a 4 and a 6 and have been for a couple of years. So I lost a substantial amount of weight and turned my health around. A lot of the health problems I was having, I was having like tingling in my fingers and toes on a regular basis. Anytime I would eat anything sweet, I would immediately feel sick to my stomach and have a really bad headache. My teeth would hurt. Yes. And then the carb thing you eat and you just feel bloated. And I felt like that every day of my life, like that Thanksgiving bloat. Yes. And a lot of food issues that I have had sort of kind of self-resolved with the ketogenic diet as well. I can recall getting up every day and thinking about immediately what I was going to have for breakfast. And then while I was eating breakfast, be thinking about what I was going to have for lunch. And then while you're eating lunch, you're thinking about dinner. So I was constantly eating and constantly thinking about eating. And I haven't felt that way in a very long time. So, cutting out the carbs and going with a lower carbohydrate lifestyle was a huge turnaround for, my health and my family's health because they followed me on the journey. And then also my own mental well-being, because I don't feel like I'm dependent on food for happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah. Which makes, I mean, that's a big difference right there. I mean, how much of our lives prior was, I got to have food to do.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
without it's like, you can do so much more.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I went from that day in Disney not being able to run more than 5 to 10 feet, without feeling like I was going to die, to, now I'm running 5Ks once a year. And actually, I'm in my clothes, because as soon as we're done with this interview, as long as the weather holds out for me here, I'm going to go take a run. And I've never been able to run in my life. I had, like I said, I had asthma and I had allergies. And I can remember being in high school and being thin. So people assume you're fit, when you're thin. But I wasn't fit. And, with all the allergies and things, and the asthma, taking an aerobics class because you had to have an additional PE elective, and not being able to get through 5 or 10 minutes of aerobics without feeling like I was choking to death because I couldn't breathe. And now I'm running. So it sounds weird to say that there's the diet component, because people think it's just a matter of building up your cardiovascular fitness. But for me, it definitely was the diet component that made the big difference, and that allowed me to go from being sick all the time to not. So,
and as we understand, it's getting rid of that extra inflammation that your body's fighting constantly from all of that garbage and junk and the sugar and the carbs, to, I'm not fighting with this anymore. So you now have time to heal and get back to the way your body should have been to begin with. I mean, I understand completely. It's like you just walking up the stairs, I would get winded and my knees would hurt just standing at the bottom. I haven't even gone up, and I'm like, my knees already hurt. I don't want to go up these stairs, but I kind of got to go to bed. But once you get rid of it, it's like, I can sprint up the stairs now, get up there, not stand at the top and go, okay, hold on a second. It's okay. Now I just go about my business. It makes a big difference. I mean, a lot of people, just like you and me, we came to this because I need to lose weight. But in the end, it's like, well, I'm not doing this for weight loss. I'm doing this because I feel better. I can breathe in your case. I can spend time with my family. I'll be here for my family. That was one of my things that finally got me going. It's like, okay, I was doing it off and on for years. And then finally it hit me. It's like, I'm telling my kids to do something I'm not doing, for starters.
Yes.
And I need to be here for them and my grandkids. I want to get into my 80s and 90s and run around with the grandkids. And the way I was going, it wouldn't happen.
Absolutely. That's actually a great point, because, I've shared this elsewhere that my son, we suspect that he's a super taster. The doctor has said he is, but they never did any testing. So it's just kind of like, well, doc says, but he's very picky and has been. And I mean, when he was like an infant, when he could first start feeding himself, it was crackers and strawberries and chicken nuggets. And that was all he would eat. And of course, the doctors they're doing the best they can.
Yep.
But I regret taking his advice. As much as we do still have the same pediatrician, and he's a wonderful human being and he loves the kids.
Yep.
But I do regret taking his advice. It was just let him eat whatever he wants. He'll figure it out. And it was years and years and years of even standard kid food like pizza and popcorn and macaroni and cheese. He wouldn't touch it, and I felt like a failure as a parent, trying to get him to eat healthier. Please try this vegetable. Please try this meat. This is healthy for you. And then here's me like riding through Steak and Shake, getting the big chili and fries and the huge shake.
And the big shake and
Yes. Yeah. And it makes a difference in the example that you set. My kids are a little older now. They're 13 and 10. And so, my son is he's full on in puberty. His voice is changing. He's talking to you and it sounds like he's, swallowed a frog out of nowhere. And he's more interested in not as so much the vegetables, but he is more interested in the carnivore part. Especially after I tried it, I've tried it off and on, and I've always enjoyed it. It just makes it difficult to do my job as a recipe creator, because when all you're eating is meat, you're not thinking about how to cook it. You're just, okay,
I'm throwing it on and you're done.
Yes. And that makes writing recipes for other people a little difficult. So I don't do that too much, but he's more interested in that aspect, and has decided he likes steak and he loves bacon. And he likes ham and fish, and he loves seafood. So his palate is expanding. But it helps to be able to set that better example. And I also think, going back to what you said about basically just being able to live, it's not just about weight loss. It is about those other components now. Initially it was about weight loss and it was about health, but it's about being able to live and not live in fear, and then also give that example to the people around you.
Yeah. And I mean, that C moment for you, that significant emotional event that all of us have to have. I mean, we can't be pushed to it. I know a lot of times we want to do that for our family. It's like, you've got to do this. You're going to, but we can't. We've got to come to it ourselves. And what that C moment for you was, my family's going to be living without me.
Absolutely.
And in my case, it was just, okay, I'm setting the bad example. Plus, I want to be here long term. I mean, and actually be thriving, not, hey, let's go see dad at the nursing home.
Exactly.
I don't want that. So I understand that, all of us, though, we have to keep that in mind. For those of you that may be listening going, I want my mom, my dad, my husband, my wife. You can't push them. People that have heard my story understand my wife was trying to lovingly do that. And I told her, you need to stop before I go the wrong way. Until I finally said, okay, that's it. And went from there. So if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to the first episode, or technically the second, my story's in there. So we don't need to go into that today. But all of us have to get to that point. Just as the point, I guess, of all of that.
No, you're right about that. I mean, and when you try to push people, it does backfire. I had, and my mom will remember this. She'll listen. So hi, Mom. But my mom, I went on vacation after my son was born. I want to say he was about 18 months. And it was just me and my mom. And my parents used to have a cabin up in Tennessee, and we went and we stayed and we had a really good time. We went down to Asheville and saw the Vanderbilt, and we had such a great time. But I had the worst time eating because I was trying to do the calorie counting at that point. And I'd lost a little bit of weight, but it was starting to come back on. And, here's me eating 1,000 calories a day and trying to exercise for 2 hours a day on vacation. And it was miserable, and it was backfiring. And then here's my mom, and we got into a big fight, and she actually called me and apologized afterward because she said she didn't realize it. But, she has always liked salad.
So that was just her.
It was just her, and she just could not understand why I didn't just eat a salad and why it was so hard for me. She's always been an everything in moderation kind of person. And when she would gain weight, she could just eat some salad and maybe have a bite of things that she wanted here and there and do a little exercise and be totally fine. And that didn't work for me. I went the other way. And then there was also that mental dependency too, that I can only restrict like that for so long before you go and you binge, because you're just hungry and angry. I was so angry that everybody else could eat whatever they wanted and I couldn't. That I wanted to have the chocolate cake and the pizza, and here I am eating this sad salad and having to watch everybody else enjoy themselves. And we had a long conversation over dinner about that, and she did, because she was constantly, she'd make comments, and you're so beautiful and I love you, but, and that but would just drive me crazier. Have you seen this program? Have you seen that program? Well, this only has so many calories. Maybe that'll help you. And it wasn't helpful. I had to come to it myself. And then I also had to find what worked for my body too. And obviously the calorie counting, I know a lot of people swear by it, and it does work for some people. It did not work for me. I gained weight. I gained weight, and then I was angry.
Because, for so many people, I mean, 1,000 calories a day, exercising 2 hours a day, you are insanely underfeeding your body. So now your body's saying, wait a minute, I'm starving. So it's going to store fat. Now, like you said, I'm not saying calorie counting doesn't work for people. It does work for some people. It just doesn't work for most people, from my experience and from others' experience. I mean, the people I've talked to, it's like, I've done it, I've tried it, I failed. Until they started eating a low carb, higher protein, higher fat diet without the carbohydrates and the sugars. And it's like, your body goes, oh, you learn, I can be full. I can actually eat a lot more. I read a post from Dr. Tro recently, and he said, I have patients that cry when they sit down and I go, you're not eating enough food. That's part of your problem. That's why you're as big as you are. You need to eat more, of course, on a low carb keto based diet. and it's so counterintuitive, everything we've been taught over the years. It takes,
absolutely.
to quote a meme of Yoda, you must unlearn what you have learned.
Well, no, that's exactly right, Corey. You do have to unlearn, because I mean, how many years have we been told that, plant-based diets are how you get all your nutrients, and that, fats and proteins, you have to really limit them. They're really heavy in calories and they're bad for you. But especially the proteins, good quality protein, you have as many, if not more nutrients, so that it's more nutrient dense and it's more bioavailable. So, for the first time in my life, and I think for many people when they try keto, you're not just full, you're nourished.
Yes.
It's not a matter of filling my belly. It's my body just doesn't need anymore, and I'm okay.
Exactly. Now. And I think that's, as I understand it, part of the reason people are constantly hungry is when you're not nourishing your body, it could be full, but it's saying, I didn't get what I need, and it triggers a signal for you to get more. So that's where, again, where cravings also come from. It's like, well, I'm craving.
Absolutely.
So there's something in there that your body needs. The old saying goes, and I've already said it a couple times, you go to the Chinese buffet and an hour later, I'm starving. Well, you didn't nourish yourself at all. You ate a bunch of garbage. And that's why an hour later, you're like, I could go right back. Your body didn't get anything it needed. It got actually a bunch of nothing. And that helped. That's a big learning curve that I found even with myself, because, habits die hard. Don't need to snack anymore.
Oh, yeah. I know it can be a learning curve for people. You're absolutely right. We get questions, we've got all those Facebook groups that we run, and we get questions all the time about, well, why don't I need to, eat under 1,200 calories a day? Or why don't I need to restrict, meat? And it's explaining to people that, no, you don't have to take all these supplement powders. No, you don't have to do all of these shakes to try to get your nutrients. And you can just eat a good meal, have your plate with a good piece of meat. And if you want some vegetables, leafy greens or something non-starchy, and put some butter on that mess, and you'll be good. And getting past that, oh no, my plate has to be this tiny little portion of meat that's like less than the size of a deck of cards and full of all these grains. And it's 50 plus years of, I hate to say like propaganda, but it's like propaganda programming from the government and from health sources that we're undoing. And
I mean, it all, and none of it had any science when they started it. They literally said, and you can go listen to, I think it was McGovern, we have to do something. We don't have time to study this. We have to tell the people what to do.
That's the worst.
But there was nothing behind it, despite the fact there were several scientists saying, no. The low fat's it's not a good idea. We really need to sit down and compare and figure it out for certain. And they were ignored, and the government, with McGovern pushing it through, said, nope, low fat's the way to go. And here we are, like you said, 50 years later, as fat as we've ever been. I mean,
absolutely.
Walk around the store and I'm heartbroken seeing kids weighing as much as I do, and they're 10, 12, 14 years old.
Absolutely. Oh, it's heartbreaking as a parent, seeing people who don't have the means that I do, that, that for whatever reason, they have a hard time and they're living on, WIC or, the EBT cards, and what the government will pay for to nourish them is not nourishing food. It's beans and rice and macaroni and cheese packets and frozen dinners. Well, not fresh meats and cheeses and vegetables.
They can. I think people, they get stuck in their habits. First of all, I eat junk, I buy junk. But if they pay attention to sales, you can buy ground beef for less than $2 a pound. Frozen vegetables are cheap. It's not expensive to do. Now, the people that say you have to eat all grass fed and holistically massaged cows and. Okay, no, you don't have to do that. I buy the cheapest ground beef I can find. I buy the cheap eggs at Walmart that right now in my area are less than $5 for 5 dozen eggs. I mean, you can't beat it. On occasion, sure, I'll buy a steak, but it's on sale. I'm not buying a $15 steak. I'm buying it for, $6, $7 a pound. So, and in the end, once you're fat adapted, you're going to be eating less anyway. You save money in the long run. Let's see here. 4:21 in the afternoon right now. I didn't eat till 2:00 today. And I didn't take anything to lunch with me. So, you know what? I knew I was going to be sitting down and talking before dinner. I just bought 2 cheap cheeseburgers, ate them without the bun to hold me over until dinner time. And dinner for me is going to be, be ground beef and something. But you eat a whole lot less, which again gets interesting. Adjusting your thought patterns, you got to pay attention to the body, but it's not as bad as people think, expense-wise, which is great.
It can be very inexpensive. I think that's just a matter of, I think there's a combination of factors. I think that some of it is that a lot of people don't know how to cook anymore.
Yep.
And some of that's just a consequence of our busy lifestyles. Everybody's at work and you kind of just want to come home and throw something on the table. And there isn't a whole lot in the way of prepared food that is ketogenic.
Yep.
So you do have to cook it.
Yes.
And when people think of cooking and you go on to various websites, keto or non.
Yes.
And most of the recipes are like fairly kind of gourmet looking and complicated. And there's lots of ingredients and lots of steps. And I think that that's very intimidating. And so people kind of assume that you need all these specialty ingredients and all these tools. And you really don't, as long as you keep things simple. I mean, like I said, a keto plate is meat and fat, and if you want some vegetables, non-starchy.
Go for it. Yep.
And that's it. You could literally eat, a chicken drumstick out of a family pack, or 1 or 2 of them.
Yep.
And throw on some salad and, drizzle on some avocado oil and vinegar. And that's your meal. And that's it. It might be boring after 2 or 3 months, but if that's what you have to do to make it through, then that's fine. Or, if you want to throw in a fancy recipe once a week and eat simply the other days, to mix things up, that's fine as well. But it's just a matter of finding that it doesn't have to be gourmet.
Correct.
And how to mix it up enough that you are not bored.
Yep. Because I think that's what scares a lot of people is they do that. They Google everything they always eat, but keto pizza, keto lasagna. And then they look at the recipes and go, well, I can't do this. You don't have to.
Nope.
Stick with the KISS method. Keep it super simple, or keep it simple stupid, depending on how you want to do it.
Keep it simple sweet.
There you go. That's an even better one.
It's a little more polite.
A little Southern.
A little Southern.
And that scares people. That's one of the reasons I started the podcast and focus on food, family, and fitness, because food's the first factor. And people stop and get scared away on that, I think, many a time. And it's like, okay, it's not that hard. It's not that boring. I mean, you can add a lot of variety. Just, for example, seasoning things differently makes a big difference. Using different cuts of meat makes a big difference. Like you said, adding different fats. So you could use cream instead of butter, for example, to add some fat to a meal, which mixes things up. And just take it, make that dedication to, okay, one step at a time. I'm going to keep it simple. And see here, I'm 3 years into consistently doing it. And if somebody actually watched what I ate, it looks boring.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not bored. I mean, I know tonight's dinner is going to be ground beef and maybe a vegetable of some kind. Sounds good to me. I mean,
to be honest with you, I think that is another one of those programming things as well. In that, for example, turn on the TV. We just watched Monday Night Football.
Yep.
And 3/4 of the commercials are about, you deserve this or you deserve that. And most of them are food commercials.
Correct.
It's this restaurant and this, 6 plate full of feasting that's put on the table, and you deserve this and you deserve that. And it's all like a mouth party, my friend Kimmy says.
Yep.
And we're sort of trained right now, and I think a lot of it is the marketing culture, that every bite that you put in your mouth has to be a mouth party, or else you're somehow deprived or not living your best life kind of thing.
Yep.
And it really isn't true. And I think one of the major turning points for me in my keto journey and letting go of the food feeling like everything has to be fancy and everything has to be, oh, I need this food. I need it to taste good. I need it to be like what I had pre-keto. Was recognizing that oh, I don't need it to be yummy.
Yeah.
It's food, and it doesn't always have to be just fuel, but that is the primary purpose of your food, is to fuel your body. And, so having it always have to be, an orgasmic experience is going to work counter to you being healthy, because your food being an orgasmic experience, well, what do they add to all of those things to make it taste? There's wheat, there's sugar, lots of MSG and other flavorings that they put in it to maximize that yummy factor. And it triggers the spots in your brain, the addictive spots.
And they hire scientists to do specifically that. And to make those foods to be so hyper palatable that you keep coming back to them, because of course they want your money. I found out, as many other people have, once your body's gotten rid of the junk, real food is sweet. It's like, I've said it many a time. I remember eating a vegetable, I think it was broccoli, could have been green beans, and went, wow, this is actually really sweet. It was a couple of months later, but it was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know what I was missing.
Have you smelled a potato lately?
No, they're not in the house because I would insanely overeat them.
Oh, see, now I don't mess with them. But going and visiting other people, and they cook what they cook. And I want to say the first time it occurred to me that many of these vegetables, the starchy ones especially, were sweet and you just don't realize it, was going to somebody's house and having them bake potato. I think it was like French fries or something.
Yep.
And it smelled like cookies baking.
Yeah.
I mean, and I want to say I was probably about 6 months into my keto journey at that point. I'm, over 5 years now, but 6 months in and going, why does it smell like there's baking cookies? Are you baking? And it's, no, I'm making French fries for my kids. And the light bulb goes off.
Yep.
Why does this smell? Oh, that's why. It's because it's supposed to be a little sweet. You just can't taste it with all the other junk.
Yep. It tastes bland without all the extra stuff on there, when you're eating all the other garbage.
You got all that noise going on.
That's a good way. It is the noise. I mean, for example, when I used to work at Circuit City, we had TVs blaring and alarms going off. And after working there so long, I had no clue they were going on. I'd have people go, why aren't you going to shut off that alarm? And I'm standing in front of it. What alarm are you talking about?
You don't even hear it anymore. You become numb to it.
The camera behind me. But it's the same thing with your taste buds. When you keep adding more and more and adding all those extra flavors, and they get burned out. That's just like an addict with drugs. You got to have a stronger one next time to continue to feel or taste it. And once your body gets cleaned out, using simple things like, I don't know, Select Savory seasonings. There we go. A little plug for my stuff there. It makes a big difference. I mean, there's no sugar in there, but some of those are insanely sweet only because of the herbs and spices being used. And you don't notice that prior, but once your body gets cleaned out, it makes a big difference. And you don't have to have that variety as much because, I can really taste food now. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's actually a taste hack for coffee and anything sort of desserty or unflavored yogurt. Throw a little bit of cinnamon in there because your brain thinks it's sweet even though there is no sweet to it.
Yep, cinnamon's a great one for doing that. And I would never touch Greek yogurt in years past. I thought that was now it's like I can just throw it in the bowl plain, and if I want some flavor, I'll add some cinnamon or 'tis the season pumpkin pie spice and go from there. It's like, man, it's a dessert. That is my dessert some nights. Plain Greek yogurt and a little bit of seasoning, and I'm done.
Well, there's a good bit of lactose in Greek yogurt even after the ferment, and you just don't taste it when you're first coming to it because it's the same thing. It's all that noise. You're so used to the Yoplait or whatever it is that has 30 grams of sugar plus fruits and drizzles and all that other mess that they put in it. And so when you have plain yogurt for the first time, just coming off that, you're like, this is bitter and acidic, but after a while you taste it and it's like, this is actually pretty sweet. I don't need anything.
Yeah. It just, yeah. And I know people out there going, that'll never happen. Well, I've heard that from a lot of people. It will happen. It takes time. Your body has to adjust. And once it's just like, you don't go run a triathlon. Speaking of running, you don't go run a marathon by waking up one day saying, I'm going to go do it. You have to train and program your body. And it's the same thing when you switch to a low carb keto diet, you're retraining your body, and it's going to take time for you to adjust and get to the point that I'm not hungry till 12, 1, 2 in the afternoon, which, I've had several people that have helped to go, that'll never happen. And then it's like, they're like, hey, I've been drinking coffee, not eating until 2 or 3 o'clock. I'm like, I know, I told you. Yeah, you told me. And one of those people, every time they listen to my episodes, going to know exactly who it is, because I hounded them quite often. So they know
who you are.
They know, yes, you know exactly who you are. So how did you get from starting this just on your own to, okay, I need to get healthy, to helping other people along the way with my ketogenic kitchen?
Yeah, my ketogenickkitchen.com. That's my ka-ching there. Well, I initially started, I got involved with the Keto Evangelist organization. I'm friends with Mary, like I said, and she was very good friends with Brian Williamson, who was the CEO of Keto Evangelist. And he drugged me in to write for the original Keto Evangelist website. I like to write, I dabble in it. And so he had me writing articles and editing for the main website. And then because Mary is always wanting to get me more involved in something, she kind of drugged me into the coaching program for a while. And I say drug me in because I'm an introvert, and I'm not naturally a person that's going to be like, yes, sign me up to coach other people. So they asked me if I would consider it, and I did it, and it was an enjoyable experience. While I was coaching, coaching is difficult because you are dealing with you're dealing with all the insecurities and food issues that you had just with somebody else, and you're trying to help them get to that same place that you got to, that changed your life, and to help them get over that hump so they make that change for themselves. And also to learn about the lifestyle, because, there's a lot of noise in the community, and it's not all bad noise. There's a lot of great information from all corners, but depending on whether or not you're someone like me who was really overweight for a really long time and had a lot of metabolic damage, you might do keto one way versus someone like, some of my friends that are more athletic and have never been overweight and have always weightlifted or been into sports. They can do things in a way that I can't. They maybe can include potatoes or rice sometimes and do carb ups. And I do that, and I'm going to put on like 10 pounds in a week. So, it was rewarding helping people figure out their body and how to make it work for them. And it's not the same for everybody. Even people who are in a similar place to me, stay at home housewife, cooking for everybody, history of metabolic problems. Everybody's a little bit different, and the things that affect them are going to be different. And so helping people experiment and tweak their keto to where it worked for them, not just helping them to lose weight or to feel better, but also worked for their lifestyle with their family. And working it in with your lifestyle with your family was probably the part that I was the best at. And that's probably why they asked me to start with the recipe thing. I'm an autodidact in a lot of things, self-taught, and especially with cooking. I love to cook. I've always loved to cook. And when I first got out on my own, I devoured everything from the Food Network and all of their books. I've got like the Cooking Bible, and it actually says the Cooking Bible on the side. It has, all kinds of tips and tricks and temperatures for meat and how to measure this. And it's anything you could possibly want to know about cooking is in this ginormous book. And I still have it in my cabinet. And so I taught myself how to cook, and then had to teach myself how to cook all over again when I went to keto, because it's totally different. I found that I had a knack for it. And because I was good at helping people figure out how to do things and make it work, not just for their body, but also for their family. Because I had to do the same thing myself. I'm pretty good at writing recipes that are they just kind of fit that family niche.
Yeah.
You know, I can make really gourmet recipes, and it's fun to bust out those skills, but most people aren't cooking that way, or they shouldn't be. Most people should just be cooking, you know, your taco night, your hamburger night, you know, and normal food for families. So figuring out how to ketofy normal food that you can eat and share with your family and not have people throw a fit, that it tastes pretty close to the original, is what, you know, I found that I'm kind of good at. And so, you know, when they brought me on to do that, that's what I've been doing. I want to say one for a good 2 years now. Maybe it might be a little over 2 years, but I've been writing recipes. It was ketoevangelistkitchen.com, but now it is myketogenickitchen.com. And so I have a fairly decent body of recipes up there, and it's, like I said, it's all family food. And a lot of the recipes that I've written are actual family recipes. Like, I constantly have my mom go through her old, she's got the old cards that she hand wrote things down, or that my grandparents hand wrote recipes down. Can you find this for me and take a picture of it? And then she sends it to me, and then I tweak it and see how I can make it taste similar in that down home, what we used to eat feel. Yeah. But be compliant and not have noodles and rice and cream of soups. Yes. So that's the story there.
And that's similar to what I do just for our family. I mean, and some of the things that I come up with, I sit there and go, oh, that makes sense. And I'll just put it on Instagram or Facebook, and people come back going, oh my goodness, you're a genius. I never would have thought of that. And I'm like,
yes.
Oh, okay. But one of them, and I use it often, but I was on a forum on Facebook for grilling and smoking foods and so forth. And I said, hey, who's got a smoked macaroni and cheese recipe? I'm going to turn it into a low carb recipe. And so now, granted, this has like 30 pounds of cheese in it, and 6 different kinds. But literally, I took his recipe and I just threw the noodles out. I put cauliflower in its place. And you can either crock pot it, you can throw it on the smoker to give it a smoke flavor, you can throw it in the oven. And whenever we have potluck at church, that's one of the things I take. The other one being pulled pork cooked on the smoker.
Oh yeah.
10 pounds of meat for $10 is tough to beat.
Right.
And, so it's like, and without fail, somebody will go, wow, that was great macaroni and cheese. No, it was cauliflower and cheese. No, there were no noodles in that. And you can't go back and prove it to them because the pot's empty.
Oh, yeah.
Without fail, I have never taken leftovers home. And when we have stuff here at the house, if we have a birthday party or friends over, we will cook what we eat. I have yet to have somebody go, man, that meal was horrible.
Yeah, no, same. And it's funny. We've had relatives over for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's always, it's going to be that keto food. Should I bring something normal? And it's like, well, you can bring whatever you want. I'm going to eat what I eat. But no one has ever had a bad meal at my house. So, and they come and they're always surprised. This is really good. What did you do? I want to say my pride and joy was one year at Christmas. My mother-in-law, who is, God love her, she's very anti-keto. She is an old school nurse. Nothing wrong with nurses. They're awesome, awesome, awesome people. But like, her training was like 50 years ago. Yep. And she's not as up on all of the new science as far as diet. She is very resistant to keto. And I made, this recipe is actually on the website. It is an apple pie, and it's not apple. It is zucchini. Yeah. And I made a fathead crust, and I did the lattice on the top, and I figured out how to, core the zucchini and put in enough in the way of like apple extract and seasonings, and to make it kind of have that sweet but sharp flavor that an apple does, and baked it all up. And I offered her a piece, and she had it. And she gets about halfway through it, and she goes, now I know you didn't put apple in this because I know you don't eat apple. And I'm like, that's correct. She goes, but I have not the first clue what this is, because it tastes just like apple pie. She's like, the crust tastes like a real crust. The apple tastes like apple. What did you do? And I had to show her my recipe for it. And it is, nobody has a bad meal at my house. I've got my crock pot recipe, the one that I take to potlucks and stuff. It's usually that crock pot chili.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that chili is so good with the beef and the bacon. Nobody misses that there's not beans because there's so much flavor there and it's so filling. And I've probably done 30 different variations of that. I've swapped out beef and bacon for brisket. I'll add a bunch of brisket. And instead of, tomatoes, tomato paste, I used a homemade barbecue sauce that I put in there. So it was like a barbecue-y chili, but the basics were the same.
Yep.
So that one's always a winner.
Yeah, I've got a 3-meat chili, and of course, anytime I make it, it's all 3 meats have hit the smoker at some point. So, and it's
I'm jealous. I need one.
it was an award-winning chili. Now, granted, it was at church, but it's like everybody loved it. It was brisket, bacon, and it could have been pulled pork. Whatever the third meat was, I still had around the house. It could have just been hamburger too, and then, crushed tomatoes and some spices. I mean, it's real simple. Some not vinegar, but maybe some broth to add a little more. But you can make things relatively easily. If you don't know how, you got websites, such as yours and mine, to go look at and to go, oh, that's a simple recipe. I can make that for my family. And like you mentioned, I bet you if you don't tell people, they don't know. Most of the time they're going to eat it, be done. Oh, wow, that was great. And then kind of like your mother-in-law, you could go, well, here's the recipe. And they step back and go, really? That was all that was in there? I'm just racking my brain. I can't remember what recipe my wife asked you for, but that's been a couple of months ago. It's probably a dessert.
She asked me for a birthday cake recipe.
That's what it was.
And I think I gave her both a white cake one and a yellow one, and I don't remember which one she used.
I'm thinking the white cake off the top of my head.
It might have been. And
it must have been for Samuel's birthday then, because I think it was earlier this year. And had people over. Everybody loved it. I mean,
hey, it's like, I'm glad to hear that.
Nobody, they don't, if you don't tell people that it's diet food, they're not going to know the difference. And our bodies, as we adjust and get used to it, it's like, oh, wow, why did I eat the other stuff anyway?
Absolutely.
Which I want to go back into that slightly off of this, but when you do go back and eat that garbage, how does your body react to it? I know how mine does. I've discussed it, but.
Okay, so my confession is, and people don't ever believe this, but it is true, is that in 5 years, I've never intentionally gone off plan. I know some people do, they test it, they see what they can bring back in. I'm just terrified that if I go off plan, I'm going to gain it all back, and I don't want to do that. And so I just stick to it. It's just easier. And I think I want to say that I know me well enough that I know that as soon as I slip into the slippery slope, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So I've never intentionally gone off plan. But I can usually tell if, I've gone to a restaurant and, I ordered something that had cheese on it and it comes out and it's a sauce and, oh, there's flour in that. And you can tell because I get home and holy cow, am I bloated later?
Yeah.
Or, your stomach is off. You feel like it's going to come back up, or it's going the other way, not to be too graphic.
Yep.
But yeah, there's usually some pretty fairly immediate gastric consequences whenever I get into something that is off plan. I mean, I want to say like, once or twice I've gotten an unsweet tea and accidentally got sweet and had a couple of sips. That's awful too.
That's a shock I can't stand. Or I'll take
it's like drinking syrup.
Oh yeah. I'll take a Diet Coke and it's like, that's not diet in any way, in any stretch of the imagination.
And then I wonder, how did I drink that for all those years? Because it is like straight up drinking syrup is what it tastes like.
It's so thick. It's like, I can't even drinking some diet sodas anymore. It's just the artificial sweeteners are so sweet. Even my kids tried one. I mean, I get that root beer on occasion. And one of the ones I grabbed, my oldest went, I can't drink this. It's too sweet.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't even sugar.
No, you're right. And that's something that I've noticed is that, it kind of goes along with what we were talking about with, occasionally trying or smelling other foods that you used to eat and they smell sweet or they taste sweet, vegetables especially. you don't realize how sweet you were eating things.
Yeah.
Even when I first started, it was, keto was sort of in its infancy as far as like the movement that it is now.
Yep.
It wasn't as refined. And so, I ate a lot of Quest bars, or I would dabble in Atkins things. And I can't eat any of that now. And it's not because it's gross. It's just too sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, you put it in your mouth and like the sodas that are sweetened with the stevia or with the erythritol.
Yep.
I can't drink it at all. It's so sweet. It's the same thing. It's just like drinking a regular soda, and that's syrupy and gross. And yeah.
And with some of those sodas, the aftertaste drives me nuts.
I'm
just like, it's like I'm eating a mint, and it's just sitting there and constantly, that constant cooling effect gets on my nerves.
Yeah, that's erythritol usually. Yeah. That erythritol has a real strong cooling after effect. And when it's mixed with other sweeteners, it can be mitigated. I tend to erythritol to use it in like a lot of my sweet recipes, desserts, because it's cheap. Yeah. You can go down to Publix and get Swerve, and you don't have to special order anything. I am getting away from it now that you can get allulose in bulk from Amazon for about the price of 2 small things of Swerve. Okay. I mean, it's not even a full pound that they give you at Publix, and it's $7 or $8. And for $14, I can get 2 full pounds of allulose, and there isn't that aftertaste to it. Right. So, I'm moving away from it, but because it is so prevalent and it is what most people probably have the easiest access to, it is what I tend to formulate my recipes with. And I will usually use a liquid stevia as part of the sweetener, because they tend to balance each other out. If you have all erythritol, it is like you ate a whole package of mints. Yeah. And, but all stevia, and it is just this bitter awfulness. Yep. And I'd rather have the mint than the bitter. Yes. When you get them in the right balance, you don't tend to have the worst aspects of either. And so I will combine a lot. But yeah, that's usually the erythritol. Yeah. If you get something that's sweet and you feel like you ate, some wintergreen afterwards, there's some Swerve up in there.
A friend of ours here, and it was a low carb dessert that they had made, and we were visiting them, and I had a slice, and I was like, oh yeah.
You got the wintry breeze going on in your mouth, right?
And another thing that may surprise people is you'll find out you don't really need the desserts. We make them for birthdays and holidays, and that's about it. Well, we have kids. They want it a little more often than that. But yes. Okay, so they get stuff a little more often, but there's so many ice cream, for example. I don't know where my wife found it, but she's got a mason jar ice cream recipe. Oh, yeah. And you mix it in the mason little jars, throw them in the freezer, and it's ready in 6-8 hours. So you got to plan ahead, but I mean, it's cream and sweetener and a flavor. I mean, it's basically what it comes down to. And you've got to shelf some ice cream for those occasional times you want it. But that's one thing I definitely found. It's like, I don't crave that stuff anymore. I'd rather sit down and eat myself a steak and go from there.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you on that one. And I feel the same way. And I will tell you, there is a little more in the way of that with my children. They do probably eat sweets more often than I do. And they probably eat a little like dirtier than I do, like because of my metabolic issues. Everything that I put in my mouth is really clean. And if it's really packaged, you're not going to find a starch or anything in it, because I just can't eat that. But some of the less clean foods, I'm not as averse to giving my kids, because they're young and they are not unhealthy. And it's, especially when they get older, like into the teen years, it's very difficult for them to be out in the world. Right. And I know that people will roll their eyes. There are some people that are really militant about, well, you just have to teach them right. And you do, but there is a point where you have to let go a little bit and sort of let them make their decisions. And mine are sort of at that point. Yep. So having alternatives that are quick and easy for them to take with them, or to provide, here, and not be worried that their friends are going to hate it, like Quest chips or something like that, having that around. Yeah. It's convenient, and it makes it easier for them to make better choices too. Sure. I have totally lost my train of thought. I don't know
That's
where I
okay.
was going with that.
I feel your pain. Well, it transitions nicely
It
into family.
happens. Yes. It's that mom brain thing, y'all. I've got the mom brain, really bad momnesia. And as they get
Amnesia.
older and oh yeah, my son is going to be in 8th grade this year. And I homeschool. So we're starting it's pre-algebra and serious, like 5-paragraph research paper kind of writing. And you remember all that junk from school, and it's just going to get worse. And so my brain, it just goes after a certain point in the day, because I've spent so much time trying to walk him through, multiplying negative numbers and then moving things from one side of an equation to the other, that I'm just like, I can't think anymore.
Yeah, we'll be there in a few years, so I'll have my wife call you when she gets frustrated. How did you do this?
That's if I remember anything at that point. It's all going to be gone.
well, not that specifics, but just how did you get through it, type
one
stuff.
Day at a time.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. It's one day at a time.
So how did, speaking of family, did you start and they followed? Did you just kind of say, we're all on this together? When you started, how did that go?
It was a combination of the two. I started, and, as I've mentioned, I'm the stay-at-home mom. So I stay home, I homeschool my kids, I do the cooking, my husband works. So you eat what I put on the table. I cook what I cook. Now to start with, when the kids were smaller, I would keep non-keto foods for them in the house. But I intentionally wouldn't buy anything that I liked. So like if I would eat a packet of Oreos, they can get no Oreos in the house because I would be tempted by that. Yep. I only kept things around that I knew that they liked that I wouldn't be tempted to touch, like ranch Doritos. Sure. I find them gross for some reason. I know that's weird because everybody else in the universe likes them, but I've always hated them. So they could have all the ranch Doritos they wanted, and it didn't bother me because I didn't like that. But when we would sit down and eat a meal, it was what I put on the table. Okay. So the vast majority of the time, they were just eating keto foods because that's what I make. Yep. And it was mostly what I kept around. My husband actually really is the one who intentionally chose to follow me. And I want to say it was about 1.5 years ago. He started for Lent. We're Catholic. And so, a lot of people give up things for Lent. And he decided he had a little bit of a dad bod going on. And it was really little. He's one of those people that's luckily just naturally very lanky and always has been. But he had the teeny tiny little pooch that would pop over the top of his, his belt there. And he was very unhappy with that. So he decided to give up the carbs for Lent and to follow me in keto. Okay. And he just decided that he felt better that way and didn't want to stop. Yeah. So it wasn't even like a huge turning point like it was for me. It was just this works. I know it's worked. I've watched it work for you for the past however many years. So I'm going to try it. And I feel better. Well, why would I stop when I feel so good? So now we probably I eat always keto. My husband, I would probably classify him as a little more generally low carb. He keeps he counts net and, he's less averse to like eating a low carb tortilla that has wheat in it as where I won't touch that with like a 100-foot pole. Yep. You and me both. Yeah. I mean, there's room for those people, and he happens to be somebody that can do that and it doesn't bother him. And with the kids, like I said, I try to give them some freedom to make some of their own choices. So, I would say they're probably in like the 80-20, 85-15. The vast majority of the time they eat keto because that's what I put on the table. It's what we have in the house. But, if they go out with friends or, my daughter's in a Heritage Girl troop, if she goes to a troop meeting and they have cupcakes and she chooses to have a cupcake, I don't want to make it into a religion. It is a health thing. And I prefer that we all choose healthy foods, but there does have to be, I think, room to make other choices and not make your life just about being a low carb person. Yeah. There has to be room for error and mistake and choosing. So we sort of try to give them that freedom. I just know for me, I can't do that.
And I understand. I mean, in the past, that's what always threw me off. It's like, oh, I can have, and then the next day, well, I had it yesterday, so today it's just another day, and then it's all back again.
Yes, absolutely.
Now I'm at least to the point that it's like, okay, if I actually have something, I know it's that I'm making the choice for this meal, for example, to eat this, and then I'm fine. I'll go right back at it.
Yeah.
It's taken me 3 years to get there, but that's something I recommend, especially at the outset. Stick to eating like you're supposed to, but it can also be used as a learning opportunity for the kids. Hey, if the kids come home and I had a cupcake. Oh, okay. But then, the next day, man, my stomach hurts or my intestines are bothering me.
Yes.
Why do my joints hurting? Well, what did you eat yesterday? Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty immediate too. My children, they go and they stay, 2 weeks with my parents every summer. And one year my son came home like 10 pounds heavier with a big old gut. And he's always been little skinny mini.
Yeah.
And it took him a solid 2 months of getting it off.
Wow.
And whenever they go and they see my parents, I don't fuss at them. Please feed them real food. Don't just have junk out on the counter.
Yep.
But you're with your grandparents, and that is sort of a thing that happens, and I'm not going to fight about it. And they will come home and be like, I think I ate too much sugar. I don't feel good. I shouldn't have had those cupcakes, or I shouldn't have had all those cookies. So they're learning on their own with the choices that they make. Yeah. And they're old enough that they connect the two as well.
Yes.
When you're young, when you're really little, controlling it, a little more helicopter style is easier to do because you're making all the choices for them, but they also don't necessarily understand the connections. They just, candy corn tastes good, let me put it in my mouth. And they don't necessarily understand that the diarrhea they had later is because of that.
Yep. Yeah, so, my youngest church had a Easter egg hunt, and of course, all the eggs with candy disappeared, but he got one or two of them open. But it's good. But it's not good for you. No. And then he was 3 or 4, so he's just like, you can see the brown all over him.
Oh, poor guy.
He's the kid that he just sits there out of the blue. Sugar makes you fat. Yes, it does. Fat doesn't. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
And he's going to be his own little keto evangelist.
Oh, let me tell you.
The way he is.
Last year, my son, we participated in a homeschool co-op. So it's a bunch of homeschool families that get together, and each parent that has a skill or, is really good at a particular area teaches a subject. And I ended up getting roped into teaching choir. My son, I put him in a civics class, and it's so funny. The lady who ran the civics class, she's actually running for office locally now too. So nice. Surprise. But she had, for one of their projects, cause it's middle school, it's, pushing into high school. One of the projects that they did, that they had to create a poster to kind of, the idea was to lobby the government for a change in something.
Okay.
And my son, it was such a proud moment. He came home with a big poster that he made where it was about flipping the food pyramid upside down.
Yep.
And that fat isn't bad for you, sugar kills.
Yes.
And I was like, yes.
You're learning.
It's all coming together now. My lectures have not been for nothing.
You really do listen to me.
Yes. And yes, and that's so funny that you say that, because being older and having kids yourself now, how many times do you sit and go, oh man, my mom told me so like forever ago. I wish I'd have listened. And it's all the time. Or I'll say something and I'm like, oh dang, my mom used to say that to me. Yeah, you absorb a lot of it.
Yeah, is the way I heard it put was, the older I get, the smarter my parents were.
Yes, it's true.
And it's like, oh, it is true.
They did really know what they were talking about, and you didn't.
Nope. Dumb as a box of rocks. Still am, but
we're getting there.
Have been there, done that.
Right.
Got the keto dessert. Anyway. Well, we're going to be respectful of your time, and wanted to go ahead and finish off with the couple questions I always ask. And first one, what's one simple recipe or food that you like to make for those that are out there going, I can't do this, that you would recommend for them to try?
Well, let's go family style. I cook for my family. And so one thing that I really enjoy making that's pretty simple is just tacos.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to have a shell.
No.
We do taco salad all the time. So I'll make the taco meat. I mean, in taco meat, you get the packet. All that's in that packet is like chili powder, cumin, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder.
Yep.
That's it. And then they put starch in it to make
a lot of it.
You don't need that. You just, I mean, there's 1,000 recipes for taco seasoning out there. I think Corey has a taco seasoning in his lineup that has no starch in it. All you need to do is brown your meat, put your seasoning in it. If you want to put a little bit of water and let it simmer down, that's totally fine. And then do it buffet style.
Yeah.
I just put out the cheese and the lettuce and onion and all the fixings, and everybody makes their own taco salad. And if people like crunchy, you don't even have to make the cheese shells. I know a lot of people like to make the cheese shells, but it can be a huge pain in the butt, especially if it's your first time trying to melt cheese and get it to be crunchy. Just go get a packet of Wisps and crumble it on the top of it. And there you go. You've got cheese and crunchy. And it's super easy, and it's a family pleaser.
I use pork rinds. Dump it all on top
I like
of pork
rinds too.
And that's my crunchy when I have tacos. And in our family, that's probably at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. It's like, what are we cooking? I don't know. I got ground beef out. Okay, that works. And the nice thing is you can add that variety, going back to variety. Well, you don't need sour cream this time, or maybe you do use salsa or you mix it up easier with that kind of a meal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can change your seasonings up however you like it.
Yep. So you don't have to make tacos. Make a ranch tacos, for lack of better words, instead of using taco seasoning.
You can do all kinds of different meats too. You prefer chicken, grill yourself some chicken. You have some leftover brisket. Let me tell you, some brisket tacos are good. That's really good.
Brisket in the freezer.
Fish taco, that's good too.
For everybody else in my family, I'm not a fish person. I don't eat seafood.
You and me, man, right there. I'm not a seafood eater. I will eat like some fried shrimp. And if I bread with my own stuff, my own keto stuff, some fish, I'll eat it that way. But I'm not a seafood eater. My son, on the other hand, has flat out said, I like seafood better than land food. And he would have crab and shrimp every night of the week if I would make it for him. Yep. I would be in the poorhouse living in a box, like underneath a bridge, if I tried to do that. But he would eat it and be totally happy doing that. My
kids would too. They told me I need to get a job where I travel again so that they can have fish, because I can't stand the smell of it. I mean, the house stinks when I'm like, so I'll come home from work and go, you had fish for lunch, didn't you? I had the windows open. Yeah, I can still smell it.
You can smell it because that has got a smell to it.
Yep.
Yes, it does.
But everybody has their own tastes, which is great. And what's one simple tip you recommend for people that are maybe being a little overwhelmed, or they're just not sure what to do?
Oh, goodness. Well, you actually covered probably my most frequent tip is just to keep everything simple. You don't have to complicate your life. You don't have to look up keto recipes every day. You don't have to cook gourmet. Yeah. Just keep your plate as simple as possible and do the best you can, and don't beat yourself up. I want to say give yourself some grace is probably the best tip too. It's like you were talking about, I think that people slip back into the old habits because when you make a mistake, you beat yourself up for it. Yep. And it's really easy to go, oh, well, I've screwed this day up and it's gone. I'll just start again tomorrow. And then tomorrow gets, well, I've already screwed up the week. So let's just start again Monday. And then before you know it, it's a month or months or a year that you're starting back over. Just start with your next bite and give yourself some grace and you'll be okay. Nobody's perfect. And it'll be okay to make some mistakes. We've all made mistakes. Yep.
And it's a life lesson, let alone a food lesson. Going into it, accept the fact you're going to make mistakes. You are going to stumble and fall and smack your face. Get up, dust yourself off, and get right back at it. And again, as you start doing that more and more often, it gets easier. Like I said, 3 years later, I know I could go and eat something right now, pay for it for about 2 weeks, because my body takes about 2 weeks to get back to normal.
Oh yeah.
But the next day I'm back to eating. I'm doing what I'm supposed to, because I know that that's what I need to be doing for my life and for my health.
Well, and that's how you make it a lifestyle and part of your lifestyle versus, something you're just doing right now, or a diet. I hate that word. I know that word technically defines a way of eating, but we think diet and we think this is something I'm temporarily doing because I have to. And it's not what I want to. There's so many negative connotations to that versus this is just how I eat. And
it is my
kind
lifestyle.
Of our life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we already got myketogenickitchen.com. Where else can people hunt you down if they want to? Oh,
I actually have to pull that up, see, because that's all changed. So I'm embarrassed here, but I have to pull up my iPad and look. Okay. So on Twitter, I'm at my_keto_kitchen.
Okay.
On Instagram, which I will apologize if you follow me there because I'm not particularly active. I don't like Instagram, but I am there, and it's at my.ketogenic.kitchen.
Okay.
And on Pinterest, which is where I'm probably the most active, it's at My Ketogenic Kitchen. So that's all one word. And if you are on Facebook, we have My Ketogenic Kitchen Facebook group where you can actually interact with me. Every day I'm on there. We've got an awesome set of admins. All of our coaches, the ketogenic lifestyle coaches, are active in that group as well. So you can get a whole pile of questions answered.
Yeah.
We try to make room for people who do the lifestyle a little bit differently, but most of the answers you're going to get from like a straight up, like just kind of a standard keto.
Yep.
But yeah, and then I share recipes there as well, and give cooking tips, and it's a lot of food questions. So it's fun.
I'll have all that in the show notes so that people can click on it and go and take it from there.
Yay, thank you.
Well, thanks for being with me today, and looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you for having me, Corey. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks.